What is going on? Welcome back to the La Jolla Christian Fellowship podcast. My name is Pastor Adam Stadtmiller, and I am here with a crew today and my co-host, India Kern. She'll be introducing herself in just a second. We are back on the flip side of a podcast on dating and relationships. Got a hand-picked group of studs that I brought in every bit of the dating life. Some of us have been married a long time, some of us about 5-6 years, newly married, dating, trying to be dating. So we're all here. So like I said, I'm Adam, and the first question I'm going to ask, we'll start with India. She'll already said this in the last podcast, but what's your age and what is your dating rank? Where are you in the dating world right now, India? And then we'll come back around this way.
Yes, my name's India Kern, and I am 51. And I'm married. I'm a certified divorce coach and a life coach, and I help people who are struggling in relationships.
Okay.
All right.
I'm Keegan Wetzel. I'm 31. I rank second on the couch in dating. Newly married.
Newly married, okay.
Between 3 and 4 months. Yeah, that's it.
My name is Devin Bryant. I am 27, and I've been married for 6 years in May.
And I did both of their weddings, which was a huge honor. Like when someone asks you to do their wedding, it's such a big deal. And they had like the really cool weddings. They were
that was a really cool moment. Appreciate you.
Yeah, that was all good.
Hi, I'm Luke Jameson. I'm 25, and I'm currently dating.
My name is Vinny. I am 23 years old, and I am single.
And once again, now, you're East Coast. Now you got the Mets hat on, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Luke, you're from Florida.
Right.
San Diego kid.
Born and
there.
raised.
Keegan, Chicago.
Yeah, I claim Chicago. Grew up here, but I claim Chicago.
Okay, yeah, that's a good claim.
Yeah.
San Diego, me, and
Georgia.
And Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia.
So, reason I bring that up is because as we talk about dating, I think things are a little different in different places in the country, and maybe that's changing. Maybe we're becoming more global in the way we think about it. But I know that the dating in the South was way different than here. East Coast was a little bit different, West Coast. I'm going to start with a question that I asked the ladies the last time. And the question had to do with roles. Now, roles in relationships, even roles in gender, are something that are no longer, well, for a lot of people, many people, at least the rumor is, there's no such thing as roles anymore. If you're into roles, you're old school. You're like 17th century. I don't personally find that true. And we asked the ladies, what's the role of a man in a relationship? And I want to just do it on the flip side. Before I ask you what you think the role of a man is, let me start out with you guys. What do you think the role of a woman is in regard to dating? And once again, in the context. We're church people, so we're talking about church. We will talk about the secular world, maybe how it was, when you were dating and maybe you weren't in the church. But what's the role of the ladies? Is there a role for them in dating? Is it just stand and wait to be asked to dance? What is it? Keegan, look ready. You look ready, dude.
Concept. I wasn't sure if we're just going to go in order.
Hit it.
I certainly think there's a role. I don't know. It is somewhat secular in nature, but like in my early to mid 20s, I certainly aspired to find a relationship that I would have considered equally yoked, which looked a lot more to me at that time of like, it's a dual income household. We both work hard. We split responsibilities for the church, for the children, if there are children, at the time that you're dating, you split responsibilities for, I don't know, the mortgage payment or the rent payment or planning for things or the time you spend with each other's families. Like I just wanted it to be very progressive in nature in that like it wasn't like I made all the decisions, and she did all the support. But I was looking for that, but that didn't bring me any happiness really or any fulfillment in the relationships that I had.
So you were looking for the egalitarian, like just total equity, total equality in regard to...
That'd be a pretty nice way to say it. I think at the time I was definitely like power couple. Like that's what I was looking for, Like it was a pretty rudimentary stance that I had. Not quite as eloquent as you laid it out. And I think about the time I was maybe like 27, just had a really wise mentor of mine by the name of Sherry, who is a godly woman, talk about how, there's nothing wrong with that, but for many thousands of years, gender roles have worked in a household, and maybe there's not like everything in the world wrong with that. And I started to adopt some belief that there is roles. So I think a woman's role in a dating relationship is to be a leader in a lot of ways, but it isn't to be equally yoked in the same responsibilities as a man. Not to think a cop out and not going into what those responsibilities are, but I do think that there's individual responsibilities, personally.
In regard, let's start with the dating. I think we're going to then we'll move into like maybe the marriage and where it goes from there. In regard to dating, like what would you be comfortable with the role of a woman? Like, are you comfortable with a woman like if she came and asked you out?
Yes.
So Vinny, yes.
No.
Luke, no.
No.
Yeah, I'm a no too. What about you?
I would probably be a yes.
Okay. Yeah. And would you ask a guy out? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't
I've
ask.
never asked a man out.
Okay.
Or a guy.
You're like, I never had to.
Oh, no, it's not that. It's not that. I just never, I couldn't, I don't know. I'm a Southern girl.
Yeah,
and,
right, okay.
You know, that really is not something I ever did. I dated in the 90s, and then I got married to my first husband. And then we were divorced in 2011. But even during that period of dating, never did apps because I just happened to get set up on a blind date. But I would have never asked him out.
Okay.
So I was struggling to think about, different roles in dating, but when you asked that specific question, for me, it's the honor of a man to lead in intentionality, right? And I feel as though if a woman were to ask me out, right, there's a little bit of impatience on her end and a little bit of lack in trust in my ability to execute and lead in that regard. So that's why, for me, it's a no, right? You got to let me lead in the initiation of the relationship. You got to let me lead in the, I guess, the culture that we're going to start out on.
Right.
So, yeah, for me, it's a no.
Luke.
Yeah, I'd second that. I think the role should be male leadership and pursuing a girlfriend and eventually a wife. And I think the Bible kind of talks about that in Proverbs. It says, like, who can find a good wife, and who can, a wife is more valuable than gold. Seek after it. It seems very clear that the man should really be the one pursuing that. Again, I don't think that's prescriptive for everyone. That's what I think, though.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I feel comfortable with a woman asking me out is just because of the culture that we live in today, where I feel like now it's okay for women to be more outspoken and go off and pursue a man rather than just like the stereotype of, like the women stay quiet in the corner and the man pursues them. But I definitely do agree on there are gender roles in a relationship. But just speaking on that aspect of it, of just asking someone out or the girl making a choice, I'm not like totally against.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any, like you said, prescriptives. Like in the Bible, there's no women don't ask men out. You know what I mean? There's none of that. But there is it feels like there's something kind of written in the interior code. And I think I like to think, no, I wouldn't want a woman to ask me out. I want to lead with the chivalry and the honor and all that. But then before we got started, I try to be really honest with myself and my opinions and like, am I just thinking that? And I thought, if I was back in college or in high school and there was a few girls like in high school who were just not in my league, meaning they were in this league and I was like in the B league. And you know what I mean? And if they would have asked you out, what would you have said? Like, would you have held to that standard of chivalry and honor? No, I wouldn't have, dude. I would have totally gone. I think probably at this point in my life, that is important to me. And it's not like I feel dishonored, or anything like that, or I have to be a big stud that goes around, but it's just like, I know the room. Like women need to know that as a man, most men, I think, at least I did, I knew every woman in the college group. We had a big, giant college group. I knew every woman in there. There was none that escaped my notice. You know what I mean? And it was like, hey, if I want to initiate something, I'm going to. But not everybody has that kind of, there are some guys that just don't have the ability to do that. What do you tell the guys that don't really know how to do that initiation?
I would say, I think like a lot of us, I think we're all pretty athletic. I mean, this guy's got a hockey injury here. That's intense, man.
I did invite most of the guys on my basketball team and everything to be in this podcast, so it's kind of going out.
The point is, I think like the competition makes men better, and iron sharpens iron. So it's like, if you're waiting to be asked out, you know, you can take cues from other guys that are taking that leadership role, and then you know, that honestly inspires other men to go do that, I think.
Did you sense competition in the dating?
I think there is a little bit of healthy competition to be the best you can be and the best man you can. And like maybe competition's the wrong word, but we're just striving to be the best.
I don't mind that word. I think
Yeah.
matter of fact, to be the guy that like women will say like that's the kind of guy I want to be with, and to be that man. But just not all matches work as what sometimes as well. So the competition doesn't matter, because if that guy's not going to work for me, he's not going to work. You know. So Vinny, you're dating, right? Are you dating anyone specifically?
No, not at the moment.
What's the Vinny dating life look like, bro?
Any dating life? Well,
Do chicks dig the New York thing out here in California?
They do.
They do.
Surprisingly.
Surprisingly.
I'm like, I don't know what you see in me, but okay.
Come on, I see what they see in you. Look at those eyes. Those Italian eyes, dude, are beautiful.
Poop brown eyes. Yeah. But the dating life for me, it's a little, I wouldn't say restricted, but it's more honed in on the online dating. So a lot of apps. And ever since I became a Christian, I decided to get off like the big ones, like Tinder and Bumble, and if I was going to use an app, more like a Christian Sound app, like Upward. That's a very popular Christian
How
app.
old are
23.
23. So when did you start using like apps?
When I was maybe 19, when I moved out here. I was dating a girl when I moved out here, and then we broke up because we couldn't do the long distance because of the military. So then I started hopping on Tinder and Bumble.
Okay, hang out. Hold that thought. We're gonna come back to that.
Yeah.
What were dating apps to us like? And people that did dating apps and websites.
I didn't ever do anything.
But what did our generation think about that?
At first we were like,
Yeah, it was
It
kind of like
was
you're
like,
like
I
that's
don't know if
so
I can do-
greasy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But now
it
it's so
everything's
normal.
changed. I'm talking like I got married in '97.
Oh yeah, we didn't do it.
But even through the 2000s, it's like.
In the
oh,
beginning,
you're
it was kind of, I think we're a little judgy.
a little judgy.
A little
Yeah. Well,
judgy
and it's
about
all,
it.
and so it's kind of changing. So okay.
But I have a question
Yeah.
for
Okay.
Vinny.
Go ahead. Yeah. Please.
So when you were on, and I don't know where you were in your spiritual walk, but when you were on those apps, did you make it in your profile that you were Christian?
Yes.
Okay,
I did.
I wanted to hear about that.
This was a problem that I actually faced with Tinder a while ago, is that they took that religious preference out. So they would have like your zodiac sign and
Okay.
pronouns, but they wouldn't like have you list
Ukrainian
whether,
flag.
yeah, all that stuff. But you couldn't list whether you were a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, anything. So that's where I was like, okay, this is kind of that's kind of it for me. And then also just the culture of the people on that app, they weren't really okay with Christianity. A lot of my experiences, they'd be like, oh, what's your typical Sunday morning look like? And I'd be like, I'd go to church. And they're like, you're a Christian? I'm like, yeah. And then I would like just they would hit the unmatch button on me.
So I saw that 57% of people on dating apps are willing to have a sexual encounter in the first like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like some
yeah.
massive number. I don't know stats, whether they're, how statistics work or whatever, but let's just say it's a super high number. Did you find like women are aggressive that way on that or no? I've never been on a dating app, I don't know.
I don't know, rather.
This has turned into Vinny's Dating Life podcast. sorry. This is fascinating to me, guys.
Facts.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
here
know
for
if I would say aggressive, but they would definitely try to initiate sex on the first date.
Wow.
More than I expected, honestly. And like, I'm very reserved with dating, so like I have to really, really, really like you and feel comfortable just to kiss you on the first date, and that's like
You're gonna kiss on the first date?
I've done that before. I'd be
Okay.
lying if I said I didn't.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Yeah, whatever.
But normally, I'm like a third date kind of guy.
You're a third date kisser.
Yeah, I'm a third date kisser.
Okay. I love the morale. You got going, dude. High
But
standard.
thank you. You got to keep them waiting,
He said third date.
But there has been times where like we wind up kissing and then it'll be initiated on me. Like they'll initiate like they want to have sex, and I'll be like, whoa, like what's going on here? And then that kind of creates like an awkwardness, and then there's usually never a second date after that.
Yeah, interesting. Luke, you've been just dating again recently, in a relationship. What was, in regard to like the timing of those type of things? Like in regard to, asking someone out. I mean, what would be?
Right.
I don't need to know your exact history, but what do you think is the right way to go? Is that too fast? Does that depend on the relationship?
Yeah, I think it depends on like how you guys met. One, I feel pretty strongly against some forms of online dating, just because of those statistics you guys just talked about. So I think like really depends on how you meet, and then I would say make an effort to get to know somebody first, and then start to initiate dating and actively pursuing them, and then what happens, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just there for the ride at that point. But
Let me clarify that. So, like, sexually you're there for the ride before you're married?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. Just wanted to clarify that.
yeah,
You were gonna get
keeping
burned
it
on
scriptural.
YouTube page
Obviously,
right
I just meant as far as like
there. Gotta get
Yeah.
that boy out. Oh, you started dating your wife when you were what, 14 or 15?
Well,
I mean, it's
technically
like a whole different ballgame.
it was 15, but my mom had this rule to where I couldn't date till I was 16, so I had to wait like 6 months to ask her out.
you were courting before that.
I guess so. I guess I was courting.
I was going to my friend Brian's house.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, 15, 16, whatever you want to call it. It's been over 10 years that I've been with her and almost 6 years married, like I said. And I'm grateful that I met her in high school because I wouldn't survive in dating. I'm so awkward, I swear. I put my foot in my mouth, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do.
I've noticed that about you. You're a guy that looks like your outward appearance is so much game, but then you'll put your foot in your mouth.
Yeah.
In the relationship.
Yeah.
Tell me that.
It's big facts. It's big facts.
I don't
Which,
believe
see, I can't tell you how many times someone saw me and said, "You're so much different than I thought you were gonna be." You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's something I hear very often as I get mistyped a lot. So yeah.
It's all good. Yeah. Keegan, what about you? You've been, tell your history, you and Maverick, cool name for his wife.
Yeah, Maverick. We basically had 2 relationships. We were together 7 years with like a little bit under a year break in between, but realistically the break, we were only like not talking at all for a handful of months. So it's kind of like 2 different 3-year relationships before we got married.
And you've changed a lot. I mean, your faith, you're really wearing your faith way different than when I met you even a year ago. Would you do anything different? Like in regard to the way you approach, but you were so young. I mean, it's hard when you met so long ago.
Yeah, I mean, Maverick's gonna listen to this and she's gonna be like, 100% we would have done stuff different.
Yeah.
And I would say yes, but I don't know that I would have had the opportunity to do things differently if I didn't do them incorrectly or differently the first time. So I don't know that that's a fair assessment. Like, I mean, you can get into the full like game theory, right? Is like, well, if this decision would have led to that decision, then would we have ever gotten to this conclusion?
Right,
so I'm not quite sure. I would say, by and large, yes, there's some definitive things that I would have done differently, but a different mindset and approach would have been maybe the first thing that would have accelerated
Talk
that
about
journey.
that.
Yeah.
What should the mindset? I like that. What do you mean by mindset? What's the right mindset?
Twofold. I think one of them is secular in my faith walk, and that's the larger one. The second one, which was kind of the undergirding that pulled me into that, was just like what I was desiring and looking for, and that largely came through. For me personally, it was seeking different mentorship that was outside of the military. I didn't have a very healthy network and circle there. I pursued business. That's kind of where I found a calling in like my mid-20s. I found some great mentorship organizations. I started getting really into personal development, taking a lot of ownership over what I was doing and where I was focusing my time and efforts and who I was spending time with and what healthy relationships looked like. I got to deconstruct a lot of my past and what unhealthy relationships look like and what I was kind of, for me particularly or specifically, I was attracted to my wife because of all these things she had that I didn't. She had an amazing faith walk. She was so caring. She can tell you everybody's birthdays, off the top of her mind. She's like always on top of all the little things that truly matter. And those things attracted me to her because those were areas that I was maybe weak. And then I tried to, in our relationship, our first relationship, change her to be exactly like me and not do any of those things. And so it was like, of course that wasn't gonna work. Like that was a bad approach. It was a bad mindset around like, why are we dating and what are your roles, to go back to that. So that changed a lot. And then faith for me was always there, but not very active because I was just so tied up in the incongruencies that I found in faith. And so I'd so strongly believe 2, 3, 4 certain things, but then I would spend 3 years internally fighting, how can we both have free will and an omniscient and omnipotent God? And it would just like disable me from functioning at all. And I never really like revolted against my faith. It was just completely inactive, dormant, like in the closet, collecting dust.
Right.
And I want to step into that, what I would have done differently, because as I'm listening to him talk, there's definitely a lot of things I would have done differently. I don't think I led in my relationship with Eden until I hit like 24 or 25. So you're talking about already close to 10 years in my relationship, and I just started leading. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that really sticks out to me is I would have got married in college, like sophomore year.
That was my next question.
Yeah, man, let me step into that.
Yeah, do that. Hit that.
So I did not feel like I had the support to do so. And I was afraid of what everybody else would think. And that's why I said I now truly lead, because if you know my life, what you do, I'm doing things that former Devin would think would make him look completely idiotic or like a loser, but I don't care because I know I'm leading with how God wants me to lead. I know I'm walking in the things that He's called me to, right? And so I really don't care too much about the way in which I appear to people as long as I'm aligned above. And back then, it was all about what does everybody else think. Not only that, I didn't feel like I had the support. So I wasn't leading, and I was concerned what other people were expectations on me. And so that literally led to a lot of struggles within my college life. And early on in my marriage, my wife and I actually had to take a couple breaks in college. So yeah, that's, and again, you can get into how would it have changed everything? Would you be the man you are now if you had not made those mistakes? But yeah, man, that's a big one. I probably would have got married in college.
I can wholeheartedly agree that even with as much growth as I feel like we had to do in our relationship, and Maverick as well, but particularly me in the relationship part, I had a lot of the other things I think figured out about where we wanted to go in life, personal values, financial values, how we felt about familial members, but I just would have gotten married a whole lot sooner. Like it's been awesome. And nothing changes and everything changes with the stroke of a pen. And really having the opportunity for us, it was to pronounce our faith in front of other people and give them a chance that my wife says it the best. She's like, these people at our wedding may never, there's people here, not a lot of them, but a handful of them, that may never hear the gospel anywhere but from you at our wedding. And then everything we do is a united front from there, and it's changed the way we approach everything slowly, but over just like 3 months, it's quite a bit already. And I'm thinking back to a question you asked earlier about like, would you be okay with a girl asking you out, with a woman making the first move? And I'm probably in the minority that says yes there. I think it's largely because, as I'm thinking about like, what would you do differently? I really, and Vinny hit this, like, culture has shifted so much. Like, people's attention span is so short. You scroll on your phone, and if it's not in the first like 0.2 of a second, it's gone. And I kind of felt the same way in my early 20s before I met Mav with dating. Like, attention span was just everything, and I either didn't want to or never had to like make the first move. And I really wanted to know that somebody else was serious first. And some of those relationships were bad, some of them were pretty good. But I just wanted to at least know that there was intent there along the right direction from a woman first. And I didn't feel like I was willing to, like, for lack of a better term, waste my time if there wasn't, and pursue that. And
absolutely, it is a waste of time.
But I also never built the skill set of like walking across the room and talking to somebody who didn't know my name and asking them out. Like, but that's a pretty hard, like, 0 to 100, on the other side of a bar. I think that's like a stretch to start a good relationship there as well.
I asked a girl out on second base once. She was a second baseman. I hit a double, and I asked her out.
You were just playing on the women's team?
I was not playing on the women's team. It was a co-ed team.
Okay, all right.
That's literally called playing the field.
And she was from Georgia, and she ended up saying no because she was moving back to Georgia. She didn't want to get into relationships. So, I want to ask, this is really interesting because this idea of getting married early is, I think it's starting to slowly come back into vogue. Parents are terrified of kids getting married early. My daughters have both asked me recently, what do you think? I'm like, if you found somebody and got married at 18, I'm all for it. Like, you have the support network, you have the mental health, you have the emotional health, you have, it wasn't like, I grew up in an alcoholic family and my parents got divorced. There was certain emotions that weren't on the table. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, we about killed ourselves the first 5 years I was married, but my kids have the skills that I didn't have. How do you feel you're a mom, you got daughters, 17, 19?
I would say for them right now, a little bit more time. I have an almost 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, and I just think that they're just not ready. And I wasn't ready at that time either. I also came out of dysfunction, and I didn't know what I wanted. Like you were talking about your values, I didn't know that. And it took me going through a divorce to start identifying what I even wanted and like what I stood for. And so I don't know that my girls are ready or if they know their core values and what they're looking for yet. I think they need some more time.
So women are actually not, they're dating less, they're in less relationships. They say over 50% of women will be single by 2035. The average age for a woman in America to marry is 31. In Europe, it's 33. That gives them, if let's say the birthing age is to 40,
Right.
that gives them a 7-year birthing window if they even want to birth. You know, so I mean, women are staying. Why are women staying single? You know, and then the fertility rates are down. There's like all this weird.
Right.
You know, is it in the water? I don't know.
Well, I mean, fertility rates would be down if you're having kids later on in life because
Yeah,
the older
they
that
are
you
down.
get, the less likely you are to be able to have children.
Fair enough.
You know?
Fair enough.
I mean, the culture is so individualistic now.
Yeah.
I think they tell us you don't need companionship to make it through life. You don't need to follow God's laws.
Yeah.
Do it on your own.
Yeah.
You know, listen to this, listen to that. And if you root your life in Scripture, you'll find that it's good to do life with a companion. Like that's a
Absolutely.
huge blessing.
Yeah.
And like we should look for that.
Yeah.
But that's if I had to guess, that's
Well, I hear people all the time, especially women, like, I don't need a man. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yep.
Well,
That's what I was
if
going to
I
say.
get
that a lot.
And
That's what I was
and
gonna say.
go ahead.
Well, I want to step into that. We have a hustle culture, right? What's your side hustle? What's your business? Are you out there getting it? And then it's like, okay, you go out there and you hustle and you get all the, the dough. It's like, what you gonna use it for? Well, I don't know. Everybody's hustling, so I gotta hustle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like if you're hustling, right, then you get in the back of your head, well, I can't get a significant other because then they'll stop my grind, they'll stop my hustle. And I was talking to people about that with people at work, just being, young college students. They're like, yeah, I can't have, a wife or a girlfriend or this because they'll distract me. And he and I came to the agreement, like, no, they enrich your experience. So I just think going along with like the hustle culture and that correlates to the individuality, that's delaying why people want to get married. For me, my wife, like I said, I didn't lead when we first got married. She kind of strong-armed me. But I was like, I got to have this set up, this set up, this set up. And she's like, why? And she just refuted everything. And I was like, I really don't. I guess we can get married, type thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, you want to have all your ducks in a row, but something my dad told me was there's never a right time to get married.
my dad says the same thing, man.
Yeah.
Like verbatim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Glad your guys' dad says that. My dad tells me never to get married, ever.
Yeah, which is interesting because marriage and family is seen as a hindrance now. It's like a
Yeah.
That's right. That's what I was going to talk about. It's not really celebrated. Like, I don't know if you look, not that long ago, the 90s were a great era. Like, it was
I do like the 90s. They're growing on me.
It was good. I
It was
enjoyed
good.
the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
It's
coffee.
a good run for my Bulls. It was good.
Good run for the Bulls.
Still haven't seen that Jordan jersey. Mav's holding out on me.
Oh, I
know
got
it's
my
at our
Bulls
house,
socks
though.
on right now, too.
Do you really?
So I do right now. They got the little logo on that side, but yeah.
I think different things were celebrated, to your point. And it's kind of, my dad does a great job of describing this, how it's like rotational, like fashion. Like, there's only so many ideas that
Oh,
people come up with. Like, things just kind of just get
Right,
cycled
right,
through,
right.
like, every 30 years.
I'll be wearing puffy shoulders again pretty soon. Or
Yeah. So I think things kind of get cycled, and then there's things that take a major shift. But used to be celebrated if you could, like, if you were great in the kitchen. Used to be celebrated if you were like a really good dad who could be there at 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like, that stuff's not celebrated right now. And I heard from uncles as well, and people that I was close with, and guys who got married the day we graduated or the day after we graduated from the Naval Academy, and had 2 kids and were divorced within 3 years. Never get married, and so. You hear that. For me, probably like you, Vinny, I was getting out of the military, and there's plenty of things I'd never been able to do because I joined the military when I was 17, that I had to get out of my system and learn a lot of those things. But a lot of the personal values I already knew. I had just been ingrained with culture that wasn't that good. And I think I was just reading it right before we got married, and I wish I would have found it years earlier. But again, would I have been receptive? I don't know. But it's pages 44 and 45 of The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller. And it just talks about how... and Ronnie talked about it at church this past weekend, that a man is to be to his wife, or a man in a relationship, just as Christ was to the church, that sacrificial love.
Yep.
But it furthermore pointed for me to, and that whole book did, as many books do, marriage is not between like a man and a woman. Like, there's 3 people involved in a marriage. Because I was for 5 or 6 years thinking like, I need to be ready to be everything for my wife. Like, I need to be able to be all these things. right? And that's not true at all. Like, we both have to be most focused on helping ourselves and then our spouse get to heaven, not on fulfilling all those things for our spouse. A priest who did my cousin's wedding, I think, said it the best when he was like, your focus from here on out is not pleasing your spouse. It's first and foremost fulfilling the word of God and entering into the gates of heaven. And second, trying to set a leadership example for them to follow, but you can't make them do it. I was like, whoa, like, it just like, it's funny how a thought can just unlock that much. Like shackles fell off me.
I saw a diagram once, and it was a marriage retreat, I think, and the center was God, and then the orbits were wife and husband, and then the orbit out of that was children. So the center, the most important thing was God, and then everything first, wife and husband, then children. So it's not what we are taught or what we see as children center, and not God.
I said, and Devin jumped in. I said that women say I don't need a man, and I would say to men who say I don't need a woman, God said yes you do. Yeah. That's the biblical model that there is, and there's no. You can't exchange one for the other. You need a man and a woman to create these parts of God's character, and I believe that there's an expression of God's character, as it says in Romans, in the way He created men and the way He created women. He expressed. It says in His creation you can understand His invisible qualities and His divine nature. It says in Romans. So everything, whether it's a sun or a flower, you can find something about God. You can probably find an infinite amount of things about God, but there's certain things that He poured into. And especially with men, I think He poured certain elements in. I do think that women live closer to their heart. And when it comes to that, I need to let my wife lead. So I believe in egalitarian leadership within the home and within the church. I believe that women were set free from the curse that happened in the garden, and it is our job as men to bring them back into a full understanding of working alongside us in Christ. So there's places in our marriage where my wife leads, and she's better at it. But it doesn't work if I'm constantly making all these spiritual leadership decisions because I'm the leader of the home. My wife respects me as she looks to me. She wants me to lead the home. She's asked when I don't pray, when I'm not leading her in prayer, when I'm not. And more than leadership, the word that kind of sticks for me is initiation. My wife wants me to initiate, and it's a less of a hot button word. But then women at the same time, back to this, what's the next question we didn't get into yet was this role of what are women looking for? But women have a role in letting a guy know that they're available.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to cold shoulder a dude constantly and expect him to break through that icy barrier, like I was pretty sure. Now I got it wrong sometimes, but go ahead.
When you asked me, would I ask a guy out? No, but I would let him know.
Yeah, they let you know. It's pretty clear.
It's pretty easy. So I wouldn't ask him out, but he would know that I was open to it. So that's the difference.
But see, that's why girls in church groups a lot of times are afraid to be nice to some guys, because as soon as they're nice, all these guys, might start asking them out that they have no interest in or whatever, and then that's kind of a weird dynamic.
But this just reminded me of something I did recently. I did a reel on love and respect. Men want to be respected, women want to be loved, and that's the wheel that I think is the secret to marriage and to healthy relationships. And there's a book called Love and Respect, and it's very good. And when a woman is not loved, it's like a wheel, and it'll go. It's like a nail in the tire. If the woman doesn't respect her husband, then he won't love, and vice versa. And I did a reel of this on Instagram, and I got so much flack for that because, of course, I was saying, I don't know, respect. I guess they equated to the word submit. I don't know. Anyway, but I did get a lot of controversy from that love and respect idea. But I do think that is the true secret to relationships.
Yeah, I care less and less about what Twitter thinks about relationships.
No, actually, it's great when you get that much traction. You're like,
traction,
okay,
right?
well, that's okay. It's a good thing.
Look, Vinny's been in the penalty box since we dipped into his marriage. I want to ask him, Vinny.
Penalty box.
So I want to ask this question to all you guys. What are women looking for today? Secular women, and are they looking for something they're not voicing? Are they being dishonest? Or what are Christian women? What are women looking for?
All women, Christian and non-Christian?
I don't know. I don't want to throw them all into a box, but I mean, what's your experience? What's your experience? Yes, all women are the same. And
Well, with the experiences that I've had, and now I'm not trying to put all women in the same
Just with the
box
ones you've
here,
met.
but from
In
what
Vinny's
I've met,
universe.
I feel like they want to have like control, like be able to lead, but then also be able to have the men take part in the stereotypical like man roles. It's like, well, like I can ask you out, or I can say and do whatever I want and wear whatever I want, but like you have to step up and still like pay for every meal or do like everything that's the stereotypical like roles of a man.
Do you think women want to lead or control?
A little bit of both. I don't know. I feel like
I feel like a lot of women don't want to lead. I don't find a lot of women that want to lead.
yeah,
They might say they do,
I think
but I do
it's
see a lot of women who
wanna
want to control.
I feel like a lot of women want to control and they don't want to lead.
Yes, but maybe it sounds like it's the same thing.
See, I agree with you. I feel like they step into a leadership control mode or position when they don't feel secure or safe or supported.
Oh my gosh, true that. So
Yeah.
like, I think the role of a man, my job is to provide a covering
Yeah.
where my wife can just feel the freedom, and my daughters to feel the freedom to do whatever they want.
And if there's no covering, then they'll create the covering because women are natural hustlers, but I don't think they want that.
But they also are, they oftentimes are nesters, and when it comes to nest, you need security. If you're gonna have a
Security,
nest, it needs to
that's
be
it.
built.
Yeah.
It needs to be built
Women
high in a
want
tree.
security.
It needs to have security. And if I find that a woman feels my relationship is the best when my wife feels seen, heard, and protected.
Yeah.
Like those three right there, and it's like, sky's the limit. You go do whatever you want.
I was going to say, and because on the flip side to that, 'cause this is a lot less negative, a lot of women, I feel like they seek for security and reassurance in a relationship from a man, just to like be reassured that they're seen, they're heard, they're loved for, they're cared for. Yeah, that's
But sometimes that need is a little too deep.
It is. It's a little too much.
I can't be that for you.
I've had it where like it's like you need to come see me every single day, every other day.
Why don't you text
me every
me?
morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you text me? Why are you taking so long? Like I come first, and I'm like this is a lot for me.
The godly husband, it says in Proverbs, it says has full confidence in his wife, and she brings him honor at the city gate.
You know, I think, like, I'm a leader. I lead Bible study, and my husband's a strong leader, too. So two leaders, it's not that we're competing because we do different things. My gifts are nurturing the children, and I have different gifts than he has.
100%.
And I want him to lead. And, I even told him the other day, we had a discussion. I was like, I want you to lead. That is fine. It doesn't mean it takes away from what I do. I do things well that you don't do. And we have this great relationship. I mean, it's not a competition. Right. But I think the trick is feeling very secure. And I don't, I feel confident in my role. I don't know.
What is your role?
My role is to be a nurturer, let's see, what else? It's, he uplifts me. That's the thing. We're leaders, but he also wants to see me do really well in whatever I'm doing. So he's my cheerleader, but he's also my leader, and I can lead in different parts of our household. That's a good question. Where do I lead? Is that what the question was?
That was just what's your role? You said
What's my role? I am definitely very much a mother. I mean, I nurture the whole family. I take care of the kid. I mean, they're older, but I'm always the one they call.
What do you say to a woman who like doesn't have that nurture, going on? My grandma she had utility and duty.
Okay.
So it was all the nurture was based on duty, and I love duty for men, like.
That's my mom.
Honor and duty.
Utility and duty.
It's like, and so the nurture is like, hey, I showed up, I picked you up, I did what I wanted. You know what I mean? But there wasn't like, oh, come on, let's bring it in. You know what I mean? Like, my mom, now she does that because she had a lot of healing in her life. When I was a kid, because of her background, there was no physical touch in my home. Unless it was like the occasional backhand. And my dad would have me rub his hands, but we just didn't have physical touch. So we didn't have that nurture.
Right.
But my mom's, different now. She's kind of healed and she would be that now. What would you say to the woman who doesn't have that gear?
You know, everyone's got their own love language, so to speak. And maybe it was, you know, maybe your mom's back in the day was acts of service, like, or
Right.
what she did was, look, I did this for you. So once you start identifying what this person, what makes them tick, like maybe it isn't physical touch, maybe it's appreciation, words, you know, of affirmation.
That's a big deal for men. For me, like when my wife's critical of me, like that's I don't know about. Let me jump to these guys real quick. What do you guys think the role of a woman is in dating, relationships? Is there a role?
Building up can for sure be a huge part of that. Like, I think in Ecclesiastes it talks about how, like, in wisdom and knowledge, there's sorrow, and I think men carry a lot of really intense, heavy burdens, and a good woman can really just lift you up, and can share that burden with you, and that's kind of how God designed it.
Right.
Like Proverbs 31 talks about, you know, she laughs at the time to come. She you know, shares that burden with you, and men need that. So that's what I would say is the role for women in relationships.
Add to that and completely agree that again, I was attracted to my wife because I thought she had such good priorities that I was like yearning for. Then I tried to adjust all of her priorities to meet mine over the next couple, which I didn't realize I was doing. But in hindsight, I was like, that was not going to work.
Wetzel Industries.
Yeah. But I think my wife and I think women they have this ability to lead from the second chair is kind of the concept to like focus my attention. One of the big things going around like Instagram and Twitter is like golden retriever energy, and I identify with that. That is me. Like I can just go. I can just like wind me up and I just go, like battery powered, you know? Coin operated, insert here. But I don't know sometimes when I have deviated 6 inches or 6 miles from the path that we said we were going to go on, and Maverick knows like miles before the exit if we're going to miss it. And she can just focus me.
Yeah.
Because she's so well balanced, and that's a personal trait of hers that's amazing. And I want to celebrate and lift up and encourage. And also, I think that's a role for many women in a relationship if they seek to lead their household, but do so in a conducive manner, or not their household, yeah, their relationship. Do so in a conducive manner that just aligns with their values. They're not doing all the heavy lifting in every area,
Right.
and that's okay.
But it's that, hold that thought. It's that discernment piece where women lead for me, because I'll be so often, and it's actually changed. It doesn't really happen as much anymore. But I'd be like, hey, let's go buy this piece of property, and my wife would be like, I'm not feeling that's the right call. You know what I mean? And when I violated that, I paid. Like she high percentage. She knew what was up. Now at that point, I think she's leading. You know what I mean? Or at least it's that partnership. It's not really leading. It's like we're working together. But that's super important. Luke.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, you know, to further what Keegan was saying, like women are really good at emotionally protecting men, whereas men can be very good at spiritually and physically protecting women. And when that goes hand in hand, it's beautiful. Like, you know, a lot of times, like you were saying, words of affirmation or just that compliment from,
Right.
you know, that special woman in your life is like, it means so much to us and can really build you up. And then we're better at physically protecting and providing, and that's good for them. It's like this cool symbiotic relationship.
Why do people feel that being tagged with a strength, like let's say men are better at physically protecting, that is universally true? You give me a fight between, and let me pick the 1,000 strongest, best women in the world or the 1,000 best strong men in the world. I'm picking the men. They're going to win every time, every single time.
Yeah.
In a fist fight, you know,
course.
I would say even with war with weapons. I just think men are aggressive. They're full of testosterone. A whole bunch of studies on like even the way that before they did studies on Uber driving, and they found that there was a wage gap, but they didn't allow with Uber driving for you to know if it was a man or a woman. So the statistics came out when they finally went and got all the statistics and the data on this. They found out that the women made like $5 less an hour than the men just because they didn't drive as aggressively, they didn't drive as fast, they worked different schedules that were more conducive to their time. Like they weren't just grinding like the men. And they couldn't, when they did the study, it was completely innocuous as they did it. So people now, you were to say like, I love what you just said, Luke, that women emotionally, they have a role, whether they fulfill it or not, to emotionally protect. Why is that limit? It's hated in this culture to say that women are better at this than guys, or why is that so hated?
Because we've placed a value on the ability to bring in wealth over the value to build a home, and nurture that home. It's really just the value that we place on a certain aspect of society that has really changed how we look at things. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were to look at what makes somebody successful, right? You would probably align it with traditionally more of what a man pursues rather than a woman. You know what I'm saying? But there is high value on the things that a woman brings to the table. They're home builders, in my opinion. The ability to nurture, foster, maintain, and run a entity as a family, right? I don't know, just the women in my life that I've seen, single mothers or otherwise, able to do that is impressive, and I haven't seen it in the same way from a man,
I think it's largely identity issues as well, to go to some of the frustrations that we've talked about offline, like what you're reaffirmed for and what you see being promoted in society. Like if I'm a woman in this church or any other, and I want to figure out what it is that's going to bring me a fulfilling relationship, and I look at where I spend 70 or 80% of my time, it's like athletes, social media influencers, and musicians that are not probably substantiating the things that align with my values, but they're getting the time, attention, and focus. And so I think a lot of people have an identity issue in what it is that they bring to the table. So maybe it's a woman that has an amazing career and is great at what she does. Like, that's also fantastic. But if your identity is tied up into, I need to be these things because this is what a man is looking for, and then the second that guy comes across the table, you're like, no, I'm not interested in him, because you got your eyes set on like what is going to promote and fulfill your identity. It's going to be very hard to be fulfilled in a relationship.
Luke, you were going to say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think as a culture, we've lost a sense of God. We've lost our morality. I think that's pretty clear to everyone here. But, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's where you start. And so it's really not surprising. We've lost a sense of morality, that things are so backward now.
Absolutely.
Humans can't, like we're irrational. We get our sense of rationality from God. He's a God of order. And when we lose that, we are now doing things backward. So, and that's why, Christian dating, we're called to be different. We should do things different in the world.
Well, we're dying as a society too. The birth rate's 2.1. There's not one Western nation that's not dying. I think we're at 1.8, and Japan's like at 1.6, or China's at 1.6 birth rate. Like any nation that is, and I would say China's westernized at this point, even though there's still a lot of poverty in third world there. We're just dying.
So to tie back to what you say a lot in the service, you often say the key to contentment is to want less.
That's the truth.
Right? But in society, the idea is, again, go out and get it.
Yeah.
Hustle.
Opposite.
To want
Right?
more,
It's the
And the way in which you go out and get it and hustle is to make money.
Yep.
Right? And so that's why I said we've lost and as you were saying, like with identity, we've lost the value that is placed on being able to maintain a home. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife, for example, her mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she scoffed at the idea, right? I need to go out, need to be a career woman, need to go out and get it and hustle. And then now that we're almost 6 years into our marriage, have a almost year-and-a-half-old daughter, it's like this is something that I want. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom because she sees the values that provides. But as a society, you're told as a woman to go out and get it. So when you ask the question as to why is the value or the premium not placed on that home builder ability, is because we as a society are just telling everybody, just go out and get it. You know what I'm saying? That it ties back to individualism. It ties back to what you're talking about, the birth rate, the delayed marriage, the individualism,
Yeah,
all
we
that.
don't care about community, and family is the ultimate community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the build off of what Devin said, like I feel like now society, the idea of what it's like to be successful, it's about going out, getting your money, and it's not that being a home builder aspect. And
What's
I feel
that
like-
shiny thing?
Yeah, and I feel like that's more of like a behind the scenes job that is like, I guess, like now undervalued by today's society, because like, women are typically just better at that, at maintaining a home, maintaining a family. But
Multitasking.
I'm sorry?
Multitasking.
Multitasking.
I thought that was a joke.
Just like patience in general, but it's not like in center stage, it's not at front. They're not seen doing like lifting the heavy object, going out and working, and I guess that's probably why it's like so undervalued now, and it's such an understatement of
There was just
of a
this
life.
video that came out. There was a female comedian, and she was talking about, she's like in her 40s, and how amazing it is not to be in a family, not to have a wife, or not to have a husband, not to have kids. She likes to get up, just eat edibles, chase sexual pleasure, go to the gym, then fly off somewhere, and then go to a wine bar night. And I was like, how lonely. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds miserable
empty.
to me.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like, the thought of getting up and like, for the guy, the other side of the guys is like, go out with your boys, play some sports, do some gaming for 4 hours at night until you go to bed at 4 in the morning. Whatever the guys do, eat your pizza. The guys have this whole different thing that they can do. But for me, like, getting up and changing like 4 diapers in a night when I was a dad and I was, a young dad and doing those things, like, I would take that life and push in the cart and going to Trader Joe's with my wife and playing Scrabble than any of that stuff that looks bling and like, I don't know.
And yeah, I can't necessarily nail the nail on the head of like why that's so like undermined now. I feel like it's just more of like a look at me, look at what I'm doing, look at what I have.
Well, I
think-
can. It's because we've, like Luke said, we've lost our sense of morality.
Yeah.
And we've lost our sense of God's importance and place in society. The model of a family is a great model of God's love for us.
Yeah.
When I look at my daughter or I receive love from my wife, like it's love that's coming from the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's undermined, is because we don't place as much of an importance on, God in our society.
And I also think it's identity versus role. I think we get so, like, our identity is caught up in what we do.
Yeah.
Identity's a better word than role.
Well,
What's the
identity
female
versus role,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
'cause role-
okay,
yeah, I don't- maybe I'm
identity,
wrong.
I'm a child of God, right? I'm not a
Yeah, right.
divorce coach or whatever that is, whatever I'm placing above that. First and foremost, I'm a child of God. My role is I am a coach and I am a mother and I do these other things. But I think we get so tied up in identity that we cross it over. It gets blurry to I'm a successful, I identify myself with my success rather than simply I'm worthy because I'm a child of God, not because I make X amount of money.
When you walk in that, the roles and all those things just fall away. If everyone's walking in their true identity as a child of God, a son of God, daughter of God, you feel you just don't have to prove yourself in the room anymore. Like, no one's trying to prove themselves in a marriage. We're just trying to make it work, Go ahead, Keegan, then I got my final
Yeah, I
report
think
for landing.
practically, right, all of those things are true, all the identity things that we just talked about, and the lack of God in our society, of morality, of aspiring to have an identity that's founded in a firm foundation and not quick. I think all those things are true. But practically, and as a lot of people I think here have talked about offline, and I've talked with you, Adam, I've talked with Luke, there's a lot of people that are frustrated dating at the 20 to 30-year-old range, and especially in Christian communities. And I will say that you will be more content if you want less, but that doesn't absolve you of doing anything at all. Like, if you look at your calendar and you're just doing the same things with the same people every week and you're still complaining that you have bad influence, like, that's probably on you. If you're going with the same group of guys and you can't find a good guy, like, that's probably on you, right? So if you're not making an effort to switch it up and to base your identity and root your identity in things that are meaningful and that you believe, but like making a critical effort to do something, then you probably haven't earned the right to complain either.
Earn the right to complain. I like that. Luke.
I love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think to like kind of tie this together, you had asked earlier, what are women looking for? After this discussion, like Christian men, would you say you're looking for more of like somebody that's like serious about these roles and not like being the hustler? Because like you see somebody that's like hustle all the time. It's like, that's not, like it's way more fulfilling to have somebody who's going to be a great mom and a great wife, like, would,
For sure.
right? And I feel like that's what is attractive to Christian men.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, depends on the Christian, man, but the guys that are stable, I could feel like I could live in a van down by the river with my wife. I'm not looking for a hustler. I'm not looking for, I didn't want to hustle myself, you know what I mean? I just feel like we want to live our calling, and be the best that we can be as a couple. I'm going to ask your guys' advice as we close. I did want to say that it's interesting as I look at, I'm wondering who's more miserable right now in regard, men or women. I know that in regard to divorce, 80%, you can Google this, 80% of all divorces, 70% of all divorces are initiated by women, 7 out of 10. And if the woman has gone to college and is college educated, 90% of the relationship. So if you're in a relationship with a college educated woman and there's a divorce, 9 out of 10 times the woman initiated that. Now, granted, maybe there's a sub-skew in there of like 40% of the time the guy cheated. So, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not gonna put it, maybe he's just a jerk in that whole thing. But it feels like, we never even got to this point. Like there's this you say you hear it in your marriage counseling of like, women are frustrated with men. But I don't hear men being as frustrated with women. Like when I was talking to the girls or the women I was gonna have on this last podcast, there's like a frustration, like, oh, guys, why don't they do this? Why don't they step up? Why don't they And dudes are like just doing their thing and like, they don't think about it. Like,
I don't know, the waves are good.
Yeah, the waves are good, yeah, exactly. And that might be the compartmentalized thing. I just want to ask, some advice. So I want to finish with this. I'll have India finish. If you had advice on dating and relationships, on just to give to, say it was like a son, or to, just some advice or something like that, what would you say? What would be the word that you would say?
Be patient.
That's a good word.
Be patient. Don't, on just finding somebody. I feel like with just being in a relationship that will progress to a marriage, I feel like everybody nowadays are so focused on finding their soulmate. Like, I got to find my soulmate, and I feel like with that...
Soulmates are created too sometimes.
Soulmates are definitely created, but I'm a believer, Harry actually taught me this, of like, you make your soulmate in marriage. So...
Right, because I've seen soulmates do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to, the souls are bound together, you know what I mean? And you, like, yeah.
Yeah, so just like I feel like a lot of young people like in my age group are like settling, and like are so in love with the idea.
Wait, what they're doing is they're settling while they're waiting for the perfect.
Yeah.
They have this perfect thing that they
They
want.
have this perfect mold, like a guy will have this.
But then they
perfect
just
mold of
settle for
girl.
Plan B constantly as they're waiting.
Yeah, and it's horrible, and it's a recipe for failure. So I feel like, and that will cause terrible toxic relationships that will lead to traumas and will lead to the men closing doors on like the next woman, or the woman possibly closing doors on the next man that they meet. So just patience is key.
Luke.
I would say, one, focus on what's in front of you. I think an issue with online dating is it's really hard to focus what's right here when in your pocket. There's all this other stuff. Just focus on what's in front of you and follow that path. And you don't know what God has in store for you. And then secondly, trust the Lord in all your heart, ways and paths. Trust Him first. Get right with God first, and then then pursue relationships.
This is the advice I give to like a son.
Yeah, just give a word of advice to close down.
You need to understand your identity as a son of God before you take for a wife a daughter of God. There's a lot of different things you can say about an identity. I can say I'm a beloved son of God, and God's love fills all the gaps that I have. I could say, He's commander, therefore I'm a soldier. I could say I'm an athlete, therefore I'm always looking to perfect my craft, as far as following God. Like, you need to understand your identity as a son of God before you can take for yourself a daughter of the Lord, because I didn't understand my identity, and there were a lot of mistakes that I made because I didn't understand my identity. So, yeah.
I think the most important thing, and this is, for my buddies who are kind of in the search as well, is that you don't wait for the perfect person to come. If you want to attract the type of person that you want to be with, you got to become the type of person that will attract that woman.
That's right.
You got to be working on that. That's an active act. It's not a restful one. I think also there's a lot of value and decisiveness that we miss. We wait for the perfect thing. And if you place the biggest value in your life on time, because you can't get any more of that, and you wait 6 years to make a decision, that decisiveness was probably worth more than that 6 years that you waited. And then you say this all the time, you can accomplish all of your goals in life and be totally unhappy. But if you live by your values, you can accomplish none of your goals and be entirely fulfilled. And I probably say that to myself once a day. Like, what are your values? Are you focusing on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can accomplish all your goals while violating all your values.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's yours?
So it kind of piggybacks on yours. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And so know yourself. It touches both of what you said. You got to know who you are, because if you don't, you'll just get that. You'll get anything. So you need to know your core values. You need to understand yourself, what you are aiming for. You don't get what you don't aim for, but you got to know what you stand for. And so, if I could go back to that person, myself, in the dating years in my 20s, I didn't know who I was. And so if I had known like what my core values were, I would have had a different destination.
Right.
So it's so important and of course, going back to know yourself in Christ. Then fill up, and then you'll attract that person, that caliber of person.
Mine was that be intentional, and it's the same with marriage as well. Let the lady you're focusing that's in front of you know where you are on the map. Me, I had a 3-date rule. Or the third date, I can kind of know this is going to go. I didn't date, and after I was 22, after I got out of college, I was trying to figure out my dating life after just whatever. Before that, but once I got out, I took 2 years off, didn't date at all, and then the first girl I dated, we dated 4 months. We only held hands. Then we broke up. She ended up coming to our wedding because we did it right. We were believers. Met my wife, same thing. Kept her pure, but just let the woman know what your intentions are. Like if you're a dude, like what I would say, I don't hit him with him at first time, but by date 3, just say, hey, I dated with intention, and this is where I'm going, and I don't know if this is going to work, but it looks like it could. Would you like to go out on a 4th date? And just be very clear and be, communicative, and put your heart into it and love Jesus. So, hey, this is so good. Like this is a really, really good conversation. I was impressed by your guys' knowledge, scripture that was coming out and everything. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, everyone. And I think there's a camera here I'm looking at. If not, you're going to find me, Ellen. We will see you at the next one next month. I hope you dug it. If you didn't see the ladies talk, they are also on this. You'll find us on YouTube, Spotify, all over the internet, La Jolla Christian Fellowship Podcast. We are out.